Alrighty. Oh, are we just going to go live right from here? Are we just going live right from here? Is that what's happening? Oh, look at that. Oh my goodness, we are live. Look at that intro. Guys, ladies, we've got a lot of ladies here hanging out on a Thursday afternoon. My goodness. We're apologizing. I will apologize on behalf of everybody. Little technical difficulties today. Obviously, Jordan Klein's the worst producer in the game. Chris, our boy, Karen, over on the other side of it, got it going. But Adam and I are going to talk really, really fast. I think we're both capable of it. We've got 30. We'll go like 35 minutes, I'm sure, here. But welcome to the MLB live, deeper dive, live before lock. It's all combined now. Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS. How you doing, my dude?
I'm good. Kind of confused. I still can't figure out where, you normally you look at the video and you do a show and you're talking to the other person. Still can't figure out where you are amongst all the tabs I've opened. But yeah, I'm doing good. 9-game slate should be fun. Early slate was a little frustrating, but not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, we would go on a long tangent about last night, too, which should have been just an absolute smash. We both like the Orioles. We both like the Angels. We were both a little lower on the Red Sox just for ownership purposes. And then Schwarber goes yard, leads to a zillion runs and extras, and Josh Donaldson going long. But still a decent enough day for you yesterday, correct?
Yeah, cash games came through pretty much like the 2v2 in cash was I played Ray and Stassi, and everyone else played Woodruff and Jeffers. So came out ahead there, still made some money.
Nice. Well, let's get to it. Hit the like button as you're getting in here. So sorry again. Hit the notification bell. Hit the subscribe button. All of the things that can go a long way for us here. And promise again, we're going to make up a ton of time. Let's get right to it here. We'll talk about Jock Market, our lovely sponsor here of Deeper Dive of the Live Before Lock show today. But we're going to get going. St. Louis minus 164 at Pittsburgh. 8.5 total runs here in this one. We got Miles Mikolas, who ended up playing. He had one start here, coming back in, and Mitch Keller. We've got to have interest in some of these dudes. And for Miles Mikolas, it just really comes down to, do we believe that we can get some decent enough pitch count because it's such a good matchup? 84 in his first outing here on the 20th. Week later, do we have some interest in going back to the well with him?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of always have interest in pitchers going up against the Pirates. They just are a really, really bad offense. Miles Mikolas isn't a great strikeout pitcher, but he's not a bad pitcher overall. His career xFIP is right around 4, and I think he's at a price point that's pretty favorable in this matchup. So I am interested there, especially I know earlier today we had him projected for low ownership. Now we have him projected still at 1.5%. So to me, that's just too low for a good enough pitcher against the Pirates.
Good enough pitcher. That's the right way of looking at it. On the other side, Mitch Keller, yay?
Pretty difficult to get to him, I think. Right. He has talent. He should be better than he is, I think. But for one, the Cardinals lineup doesn't strike out a lot. It's not the most potent lineup, but there's just not a lot of strikeouts in it. And then on top of that, you have this range of $7,000 to $7,800 pitchers where there's a decent amount of upside amongst them. I think kind of mixing those guys in is going to get you enough savings without having to go to Mitch Keller too often. So I doubt that I really get there too much.
All right. And then we're going to talk bats here because that's really the main thing that you want to be discussing here. I don't really want to pick on Mikolas here with Pittsburgh side. Is there anything that really sticks out to you from the Pirates outside of maybe a Yoshi one-off? Because apparently he homers every slate now.
Yeah. Brian Reynolds, I think, is normally the answer. No Yoshi in the lineup tonight. So
there we go.
Unless you're going for the pinch hit home run, don't go there. But Brian Reynolds at 4K.
Game theory. Yeah,
exactly. Brian Reynolds. I'm not sure if you've ever gotten past late in the tournament by a pinch hit home run, but it is not a fun experience.
Have you?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. I've done it in the World Series 2 people with Jock Peterson, but that's about the only time it's ever been a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was regular season, I don't know, probably 5 years ago, but Adam LaRoche pinch hit in a Nats game. The game ended up going 14 innings. He got 4 at-bats and scored 30 points or something. But yeah, it's not fun. Brian Reynolds, though, I think a pretty strong option, 4K here. Mikolas, again, not a great pitcher. And someone like Reynolds, I think, is in a pretty good spot. But outside of that, it's pretty tough to get much from the Pirates, I think.
All right. And then the Cardinals side, that's really what we're looking at here. Looking at the top stacks tool for the day, there's not a ton of teams to be getting a lot of pop. It seems like there's a lot of negative leverage kind of lingering around, and they're the good spots. St. Louis, no different. One of the highest owned teams, the third highest owned team here as a stack for the day, but still a 9.8% top stack potential. I'll still kind of mix them and work them in, try to get a little bit different because 1 through 8, with the exception of Sosa, who I just never end up playing. Los Newball. Love playing that guy just because I like saying his name. But anybody from St. Louis really stick out to you outside of the main groupings?
Dylan Carlson at 3,300, I think, stands out. He's not great, but he has some speed. He has some power. He's only 3,300. And Keller hasn't even been striking guys out this year. He's always walked a lot of guys. He's always given up some power. Used to have good strikeout numbers. This year against lefties, only a 15.5% strikeout percentage, 378 expected WOBA, 153 expected ISO. I think Carlson at 3,300 looks pretty good.
All right. Anything else from this one?
Nope.
Arizona. Plus 140 at Philadelphia, 9 total runs here in this, 5 total runs there, 4.1 for Arizona. I'm kind of surprised that it's as low as what it is, considering we've seen some larger totals from them, mainly because Matt Moore is very, very bad at pitching baseballs. And for the season, just not a guy that I think is going to continue to be. I mean, this is Arizona, so sure, you can kind of look at that, but a 452 expected slugging, only a 20.2% K percentage, so he's not getting strikeouts, he's giving up hard contact, and it's going high, 15.4 degree average launch angle here for the season. What are you kind of seeing from pitching here?
So Matt Moore, I have trouble getting to him. He's starting in place of Zach Eflin, who was scratched maybe like an hour and a half ago. Difficult to get to Moore. The Diamondbacks lineup isn't great, but they do have some right-handed power here. You have a cheap Nick Ahmed. You have Carson Kelly, who's going to look pretty good. Christian Walker's okay. Moore is just not that good of a pitcher. On the other side, though, Zach Gallen is interesting to me in tournaments. It's not a great matchup going up against the Phillies, but what stands out is that he's only getting about 9.5% ownership right now on DraftKings. You compare that to, for example, you say Kikuchi, who's $100 more, getting basically 4 times the ownership. Carlos Carrasco getting more ownership in that price range as well. We'll talk about Kikuchi. I think he's a good play, but I think the ownership gap's a little too big between him and Gallen. Gallen actually has a 26.7% strikeout percentage. 27.4% strikeout percentage this season.
Higher,
yeah. I was going from memory, but I was a little bit off.
Well, you're
27.4% strikeout percentage, 3.92 xFIP. The walk rate is high. The home runs per 9 are high, but he does have good strikeout stuff. And then one other thing that I think works in his favor, Reese Hoskins not in the lineup tonight. He's on the injured list. Gallen has actually given up more power to right-handed hitters than left-handed hitters this year. Part of that is because he has a changeup. He throws almost 26% of the time. It's been very effective against lefties. Overall, 24.6% strikeout percentage to lefties, 0.069 expected ISO. Righties, he has a higher strikeout percentage at 30.5%, but he's allowed a 216 expected ISO. The only righties in this lineup that have any semblance of power are JT Realmuto and Gene Segura. Harper, of course, is good and left-handed, but I think it's just a little bit of a watered-down lineup here where Gallen can have some success.
I love it too. Saturday, that's who Ryan ended up using in the live final in Colorado. Mind him, that was a fantastic play. And had Aaron Nola not gone completely nuclear, he would have been the top pitcher on the board in that 6-game on Saturday. A guy with a 27.4% K percentage. Yeah, I absolutely love getting some of him, especially in large field tournaments. I mean, he's not going to get a lot of ownership. And you talk about Kikuchi. We'll get to him later too. Still like him, but I mean, play the two of them together and just jack up the bats. So love going there as well. From a bat perspective, we talked about the righty power that exists for Arizona. I think we can kind of move on from there. But from the Philly side, is there still some guys that you might want to pick and choose to kind of throw up against Gallen just for the heck of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Realmuto is still one of the better catching options on the slate. He is expensive. He'll be difficult to get to. Segura's priced up as well. And then Bryce Harper, even though Gallen has done a better job of limiting power to lefties, certainly still a strong option. If you need savings, Brad Miller has power from the left side. But overall, I kind of just think this lineup isn't that great. And I don't really like them quite as much as I did this morning.
Right there with you. All right. We're going to keep it rolling here. I will talk a little bit about our tools a little bit later here too. Washington plus 113 at Miami, 7.5 total runs in this one. We've got Alicia Hernandez and Patrick Corbin. Patrick Corbin, days of yore, the guy definitely was racking up strikeouts. We've seen some random spikes from him, and you could pitch me against the Marlins, and I think I would probably have upside here, but 497 expected slugging here. It doesn't feel great to be going to this dude whatsoever. 18.6% K percentage as well, but this is still Miami that we're looking at here. Do you have some interest in taking some GPP shots on this dude?
Yeah, I'm really torn on this. I had to write about him in the deep dive article today, and I just didn't even know how to put into words what I wanted to say, because on the one hand, kind of like the Pirates, I think you can take pretty much anyone against the Marlins, especially when the game's in Miami. So it's a favorable it's a favorable park in addition to a good lineup to face. The issue is that Corbin is a bit more expensive than he normally is at 8,200 on DraftKings, and he's also getting ownership at about 16.2%. So it still comes back to, DFS being a game of salary and ownership mostly. And both of those things are there because he's facing the Marlins. So I'm not really sure how much of an edge there is in going to Corbin at this point. I think, clearly it is a good spot for him. It's not like it would be surprising whatsoever if he has success, but there are a lot of alternatives in that price range that I think have similar ceilings as well. So where I do get to Corbin, I expect it will be in lineups where I have lower owned stacks and I'm going more for just the top projected point per dollar pitchers. But no real strong take on Corbin here because I think it is a good spot, but just not a very good pitcher overall. And then also he has struggled with right-handed bats in general this year, 17.4% strikeout percentage with a 234 expected ISO. The Marlins don't have a lot of good bats, but they do have 6 right-handed bats plus the pitcher in their lineup tonight. So not exactly the ideal spot for Corbin, I don't think.
And so Alicia Hernandez on the other side here, the pitch count, we've seen 82 pitches out of him. He only had 68 here against Cincinnati. Part of that, he's given up a home run in all of his starts here so far this season. He's had some random fill-in starts here, but for the most part, looking at his K percentage in the context of the slate, 26.4%. I guess the ownership's there. He's going a little bit over-owned. I'm probably going to get some sprinkled in exposure to him because Washington, outside of your obvious Soto and Bell, just aren't that imposing of a lineup. Are you going to be playing Hernandez whatsoever today?
Yeah, his ownership's come up a bit since this morning, so I'm not quite as interested in him. But he's another guy where I think I probably just kind of get around the field, use him where I have lower owned stacks, go to lower owned pitchers where I have more popular stacks. Hernandez has just north of a 25% strikeout percentage in 31 career starts. That's pretty good. 4.7 xFIP, not as good. The Nats lineup, though, is not particularly imposing. Soto and Bell are good. Everyone else really isn't. So I think Hernandez is the more talented at this point between him and Corbin. The matchup isn't quite as good against Washington as Corbin's is against Miami, but I think Hernandez is a good play here with the ownership coming up, though. Not quite as excited about him as I was this morning.
Everybody thinks you look absolutely beautiful. Maybe this is a stream, we're using different streaming software and everybody's saying you have the nice hat on. You've got a dress shirt. Are you going on a date later?
No, I'm not. I just, sometimes you run
so
out.
Beautiful.
Sometimes you wear all of your bum clothes and then you don't do laundry. So you have to start wearing the nice ones.
I was going to say, we're the blue-eyed brigade over here. We're going out to the bar together after this and making moves. My fiance won't like that, but we're going to go make moves. Let's talk bats here.
She told me ahead of time you could have gone to the golf tournament this weekend.
Oh, man. If you had invited me, you got to invite me. RinPack invites me places. You don't invite me places.
I have a bigger social circle than RinPack.
Whoa. Whoa. Holy shit. Shots fired into the atmosphere and they are coming down and they are hitting things. All right. Well, play Soto, play Bell. Anybody else from Washington?
Oh, sorry. No, Yadiel Hernandez.
Thanks so much for working today. Just because we came in late, we got to work. We got to fly by, dude.
Yadiel Hernandez, I think, is fine, but it's really Soto and Bell.
Oh my God. Look, Chad just blew up because you're a bad person and you deserve what is coming to you. By the way, the DFS karma gods are going to smite you here. Miami from this side. This is the spot that I've just been struggling with all day because I think every show for the last, I don't know, forever since I've been doing this, I feel like Miami's been garbage and I've had zero exposure to this team. I literally just removed them out of Cruncher. I have some interest in going up against Patrick Corbin, even in this spot. Looking at the top stacks tool, it's interesting to not see Miami at the absolute bottom, but there's some positive leverage. I have some interest, especially in the Jesus Aguilar, Miguel Rojas, Lewis Brinson on the front end. How about yourself?
Yeah, as much as it hurts to say, Miami not getting much ownership, and really they shouldn't. If Miami was getting a lot of ownership, you would just ignore them. But Corbin's getting ownership, so you negatively correlate with that. Like I said before, he has given up power to righties. He has only struck out 17.5%. Not tons of power here, but Aguilar has enough. Brinson is supposedly a promising prospect who has his moments. Brian Anderson's actually a pretty decent hitter. Alfaro has power. Rojas puts the ball in play. It's not the worst lineup to get to, and then it's also going to let you pay up for pitching.
Oh, Josh. All right. Anything else from this game whatsoever?
No. And yeah, someone in chat said you can tell when I read Josh's comment. That is exactly what I was laughing at.
too. It took me a second to see it. All right, we've got 2 YouTube channels. I'm going to talk to them. We're going to be going all the way up till 3:15 Pacific time, 6:15 on the East Coast here today. Are you cool with hanging 15 minutes around, Mr. Adam?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. You're a great sport. Way to go. Either way, check out our 2 new YouTube channels. We have a ton of content coming out for the season-long fantasy football and sports betting. That is the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel and the Awesemo Odds channel. Check those out. Hit subscribe. They're linked there in the YouTube chat, I believe. Maybe if we switched over streams, we'll get them in there for you here. But producer Chris, best in the game for sure. Definitely better than that Jordan Klein fellow. We've got all of these different videos that you have to look at here. I'm going to be producing one here coming up soon as well. But Lofty's done an incredible job at putting some of these together. Matt Gajewski as well, talking about all you need to know about fantasy football leading into the season. It's coming up here so fast. A lot of you are going to be doing your year-longs this weekend, next weekend. I know I have a couple that I'm going to be doing here over the course of the next couple days as well. We have best ball content. We have everything you could possibly imagine that is covered over on that site. Definitely give it a look. We've been putting in so much time and effort over there. Definitely check it out. But coming up here, we're going to have a lot of different things that are going to be only featured over on those channels. So you want to be subscribed. So go do that right now. All right, back to the baseball here. We are flying Minnesota plus 241 at Boston, 10 total runs here in this one. This is a gigantic talking point. So we have no Polanco in the lineup here for the Twins. For the Red Sox side, we're missing somebody. Xander Bogaerts is who we do not have over here on this side. But it's hard not to absolutely love the Boston side and Chris Sale. Looking at these pitchers, John Gant, I don't think we're going to talk about the cast off from St. Louis. But Boston, my lord, Chris Sale, how do we handle him on this slate?
I think it goes without saying he's one of the top options. If you want reasons to be concerned about Sale, I think that there's 2. For one, he's only gone 5 innings in each of his first 2 starts back from the injured list. In the first one, he threw like 87 or 89 pitches, so it wasn't really concerning. But he threw 71 last time out. That's somewhat concerning because my assumption was that the Red Sox would be smart enough that they realized that how many pitches you throw is a lot more important than the number of innings. It appeared in his last start that wasn't the case and that they were just going to take him out after 5 innings. I'm guessing he can go deeper today, but I really don't know that for sure. The other thing that I think is a little bit concerning is his velocity across the board last start was down about 1 mile per hour. It's probably nothing. He's probably fine, but it was his second start back after arm surgery. So I think it's at least worth noting that you saw the drop off there. So I think he's a good play. I think more often than not, he's going to have success here. Like you said, no Jorge Polanco makes this lineup a little bit weaker as well. There's some reason for concern on Sale, but overall, I'm just going to get to him and hope for the best.
Me too. In like large fields, 150 lineups. I mean, I don't want to ballpark, but he's obviously going a little bit over-owned. But these top pitchers, I mean, 25% for him as opposed to 34% ownership for Scherzer. Comparatively, him against Scherzer, who we'll talk about later, which one do you think you're going to get to more of in a 150 situation?
Probably Scherzer.
Okay.
I do like Scherzer a little bit more, but again, I think it's close. I kind of think that I probably get around the field on both guys. Neither one has an ideal matchup. Scherzer at this point, I think, is the better pitcher. Sale, I think, has a slightly better matchup, but probably getting a little bit more Scherzer.
Just an important talking point, because I think that's a decision a lot of people are going to have to make on which one they want to side a little bit more of when you're making more than one lineup. If you're making one lineup, of course, you're cheering for one as opposed to the other, unless you're playing them both together, which on FanDuel is impossible. So don't do that over there. That would be cheating. Let's talk Boston bats. Actually, first, let's talk Twins bats. Is there anything that sticks out to you other than, you can take shots on Josh Donaldson? Chris Sale was in his first start, just getting the ball thrown into the ground here, inducing some more ground balls. But we know he's definitely been susceptible to giving up some solo shots here in the past. It's still a 0.5 average launch angle here on the season. It was actually negative after his first start, but super, super small sample size here for this season. Only a 289 expected slugging through 2 starts. Is there anybody you might want to take a shot for some massive leverage in this spot?
Josh Donaldson, 3,300, just too cheap of a price tag for someone with his power. Miguel Sano hitting cleanup at 3,200. I kind of just those are the 2 guys that are going to stand out the most, but this is a really, really cheap team. You have Brent Rooker at 2,400 that has power. Ryan Jeffers at a pretty weak catcher position at 2,500. There is some chance that Sale drops off. Again, I think the most likely outcome is that Sale's fine. There's no real reason to be concerned about the velocity and whatever, but there is some chance that he's just not fine and that we're going to see that tonight and find out real quick. So getting to Minnesota against a popular Sale, at very low ownership, and also on a slate where basically outside of the Red Sox, there's no one team that stands out as a great option. So the opportunity cost amongst offenses that you're stacking isn't that high either. I think that you're kind of just going to be taking risks in a lot of spots. So I am interested in the Twins as a whole, but individually, Sano and Donaldson in particular.
In premium Slack, Jets World, he always hits us up, has good questions, so we'll give him a little love here. Is Sale safe for even preferred for the 777 on DK today?
Safe, I wouldn't say. I don't really know that any pitcher tonight is safe. Like, the Twins are dangerous enough. The Padres for sure are dangerous enough. I think he's one of the top pitcher options. I think that the concerns I laid out are worth noting, but they're not making me say like, oh, you can't, I'm not going to roster Chris Sale. I think he is one of the best pitching options on the slate. I just think they're worth knowing as far as, it wouldn't be shocking if you look back at the start and just go, oh man, that was really ugly.
Yeah, for me, I think Scherzer probably falls in the category of a little bit safer, which is ironic because there's definitely more power for the Padres. But a lot of that power comes from the right side, which Scherzer can definitely shut down. So I think I probably feel a little bit better with him, but that's just my feel on it. But I wouldn't call either one of them safe whatsoever on this slate for sure. Let's talk Red Sox. This is the important talking point of this entire slate here, what to do with them. They ruined both of our lives yesterday. I thought we were going to take down some good stuff. I think I jinxed us halfway through the night, so sorry about that. I'll take the blame there. I will not take blame for anything else going forward. But Boston, 19.5% ownership share, top stack potential 17.6%. I still find it impossible not to have exposure to this team in such a good spot against John Gant, who, by the way, is not very good. 400 expected slugging, doesn't miss bats, walks dudes at nearly a 15% clip. I mean, how do you get away from building 5 mans of Red Sox on this slate?
Yeah, like they're getting a lot of ownership, but also when you look at the top stack tool, for example, Boston has essentially twice the chance of being the top stack compared to every other team on the slate, with the exception of St. Louis, who I think is, I mean, obviously I trust the numbers more than like my gut and my brain, but it almost seems like kind of high to me that they're at 10%. So the point being, Boston is just far and away the top stack. It's not like last night where you had the Angels in a similar spot. You had a couple of other teams that look similar as well. So they are getting a lot of ownership, but relative to some of these other top teams, I think they're actually still a little bit more appealing. Like the Cardinals are fine, but they're getting a lot of ownership. The Indians are fine, but they're getting a lot of ownership. If I'm choosing between those teams, I still like Boston a little bit more. And there's still different ways you can go with this lineup. Like, it's not ideal, but if you want to use some $3,300 Jarren Duran batting 8th, some $3,500 Bobby Dahlbeck hitting 9th, those guys do at least still have some power and some upside. They can do damage. So there's different ways to stack Boston. There's some low-owned pitching you can get to. I do anticipate getting to more Red Sox tonight than I did last night, for example.
I just started clicking stuff on StreamYards. That was an oopsie. I did not mean to. Producer Chris, 100% me. Jordan, I'm getting the thumbs up. Yay, I'm an idiot. Cool. Moving on with our lives here. Anything else here other than just playing the dudes?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
All right, yeah, so play the dudes. There we are. Texas plus 139 at Cleveland, 9.5 total runs. Butthole, think about your actions here, okay? Let's try to be civil here. I wanna be friends here. Yeah, no, Chris, that was 100% me. I'm an absolute dunce. Jordan Lyles, 6K over here. Sam Henches on the other side, 6.5K. I'm not going to play either one of them. How about you?
Yeah, I don't really see it either. Just not a slate where I think I really need to go down to Jordan Lyles for the salary savings. There's other guys that I would get to first. Sam Henches, it's a good matchup for him. It's the Rangers, but don't really think it's necessary to get to him either.
And then Cleveland, which is a team that I feel like I short every single slate because they come in with a crazy amount of negative leverage going towards them. 13.9% ownership share, the second highest owned team on this slate. 8.6% top stack potential, which I guess is still third best on this slate. But I think I would rather just up my exposure to Boston here. I guess we just reran ownership here again. Now Boston's even higher owned than what they were before. I think that's going to be what we see going forward. In Cleveland, I mean, you can play Jose Ramirez and Franmil Reyes every single slate. I'm going to say that until I'm blue in the face, but Bradley Zimmer, some of these other guys, I don't know. Not my favorite spot to be getting to. At the same time that I'm not going to go to pitchers here. Do you have anything from the Cleveland side that you're like, I absolutely cannot pass up on them on this slate?
I wouldn't go that far. I think Ramirez and Reyes are clearly top options. You have a really cheap Bradley Zimmer that really should just be more expensive than he is. Ahmed Rosario, not a very good hitter, This year, he's got a sub 100 expected ISO against right-handed pitching, like a 299 expected WOBA, but he is hitting second on a team with one of the highest implied run totals on the slate. Most likely going to be over-owned in tournaments. Right now, we have him projected for 18% ownership. I would be shocked if I got there, but I do think he's on the short list of cash shortstops just because the position is not that good. You had Tim Anderson and Bo Bichette both play on the early slate, so those guys aren't available tonight. And he's pretty cheap on this, in a good spot. So in cash, I think Rosario looks pretty good. Not someone I'll get too much in tournaments, I don't think, though.
And from the Texas side, this is a team that I have had no gauge on what to do with them ever. They randomly went off in Boston from the one slate. What was that, last Friday or Saturday? I can't even remember, but they're not a very good baseball team. But a 4.3 implied total is larger than what you would expect. You have Adolis Garcia that you can play pretty much every single slate. Jose Trevino has now moved up to 6. He's in the 6 hole, 2.2K for him. Nick Solak, 2.2K. Are we kind of looking to pick and choose anything here from the Texas Rangers to go up against Sam Hedges, who, again, is not a very good pitcher?
Yeah, I like Texas here. Adolis Garcia, 3,100, pretty good price tag on him. He stands out as someone in cash. I think that is a good option. Kiner Falefa leading off is fine, but Garcia is really the target for me.
All right. Well, that was easy. We're going to play Marlins. We're going to play Rangers, and we're going to be miserable. Very much looking forward to the slate this evening. Good times. Let's talk Jock Market here, because Jock Market has turned the stock exchange into fantasy sports. They've made fantasy sports from the stock exchange. Either way you want to look at that. Forget about waiting until the end of the game to make money. Jock Market allows you to buy and sell shares of players in real time with guaranteed payouts for all shares at the end of the night. It's a really fun interface. It's super easy to use on the app, and I'm suggesting you try it out right now with the promo code Awesemo for a $50 bonus on your first deposit. Check out the pregame IPO odds. You simply buy, sell, or hold based on what's going on in the game. Last night, there were so many opportunities all the way up until the 16th inning of that Dodgers game and Padres game that I stayed up for maybe a little bit while I'm tired today, but it was just too much fun. Fantastic game. So many opportunities for Jock Market play over there where you could have gotten exposure to AJ Pollock for like nickels on the, or what is it? Dollars on the nickel. I don't know the right way to say this. My brain is not working in that way, but I'm just telling you right now, Jock Market is a really fun way. It's how you build and sustain a bankroll, taking advantage of these promotions, taking advantage of these first deposit bonuses. So Awesemo, use that promo code for a $50 bonus over on Jock Market. And thank you so much to them for their sponsorship. Absolutely love working with them. And it's, again, one of the cleaner, more fun apps that you're going to play on in the DFS space. So definitely add that to your exposure for the day. All right, let's move ourselves along to what do we got up next? San Francisco Giants, minus 118 at New York Mets, 8.5. The only thing that I really broke down when I looked at this last night was that there were 3 shortstops that you're going to have to choose between from the Mets side if you want to go up against Alex Wood here. You've got Javi Baez, you've got Jonathan Villar, and you've got Francisco Lindor all in the lineup and all listed as shortstops only on DraftKings. So, Adam, are you going to play FanDuel so you can play all 3? Oh, you're not. Okay, good talk. Glad we had it. Alex Wood on one side of the bump here, Carlos Carrasco on the other. 7.5K for Carlos Carrasco against the Giants, who can definitely be scary, but the pitch count started to trail up. And I got to say, this is probably the most interest I've had in Carlos Carrasco in my entire life, mainly because the San Francisco Giants 25.3% K percentage up against righties for the season at the same time that they smacked them 108 WRC plus, nearly a 200 ISO. Now it's down to 199. Oh, sad times. But how do you feel about pitchers in this spot?
Decent spot. Talking Wood and Carrasco, right?
Yes, those are the two.
I mean, the spot for Carrasco,
super fast talking mode.
The spot for Carrasco scares me because he's been really hit or miss since coming back. He struggled in a few starts. He's had a couple of good starts. It's a really difficult matchup against the Giants. Granted, Brandon Belt is on the bereavement list, so that does make the Giants lineup a little bit weaker. Carrasco has had issues with lefties in particular so far, and really just over the last few years. So not the best spot for him. I think ownership wise, he's getting 13%. If it were a little bit lower, I'd have some interest, but as is, I think if I'm taking a risk on a pitcher in that salary range, I'd get the Gallen before I get the Carrasco. As far as Wood though, I think his ownership's about where it should be. 8,700. There's not really much priced around him. Patrick Corbin is a little bit cheaper, but Wood's been really good his first time through the order this year. He's been not good the second time through, and he's been even worse the third time through. So what typically ends up happening is he kind of gets off to a really good start and then loses that like ceiling game because he struggles and then gets pulled around 90 pitches. But it's really just an average Mets offense. Wood is still a good pitcher, and there's not a whole lot around him in terms of salary. So I do think I'll get to some Alex Wood here.
All right. And then let's go to the Giants side. Anything that really sticks out to you? Carlos Carrasco, again, this is the most interest I've probably had in him all season long, or probably since he was with Cleveland. But there's definitely still Lamonte Wade. Tommy LaStella gets the lineup bump. He was batting eighth. Now he's batting second here tonight. A 3.1K cheap for him there. As you said, Belt out of his grandma passed away, so he's out of the lineup. We've got Brandon Crawford batting cleanup there, a good shortstop option at 4.5K. If you're looking to get a little bit different, you're going to pay up a little bit to be contrarian there. But what kind of sticks out to you here on the San Francisco side? And when the world is Mike Yastrzemski doing batting seventh?
I have no idea how he continues to hit at the bottom of the order. Like it was like, okay, whatever. Brandon Belt's in there. The middle of the order is really good. I don't know how Tommy LaStella jumps up to 2 ahead of Mike Yastrzemski though. But Lamont Wade still sticks out at 3,600. Tommy LaStella at 3,100, pretty good value there. We know Bryant's good, Crawford's good, Dickerson has power, Yastrzemski has power from the left side. And the thing with Carrasco, and I kind of mentioned it before, we have the really small sample this year where he has a 244 expected ISO to lefties. But even if you go back to the start of 2019, and that includes some times where Carrasco had success, 335 expected WOBA, 226 expected ISO to lefties. He's been someone for a while now that you can target with left-handed power, and the Giants have a lot of it. It's a positive park upgrade for them as well. Right now, I think they're one of the best tournament stacks. We have them 4th highest in top stack percentage. All 3 teams ahead of them are getting double-digit ownership. 21% going to Boston, 12 to the Cardinals, 15 to Cleveland, and then you get the Giants coming in at 4%. So I really like the Giants right now.
Yeah, 199 ISO against righties. Best offense in baseball in that regard. 108 WRC plus. There's nothing you can really knock when it comes to them facing right-handed pitching on the season here. So I'm right there with you. I think I'm going to have some definite exposure there. And you can play them 1 through 8, and there's really no issue with that, which is fun. The Mets on the other side, they actually have the little bit lower team implied total 4.2 here on this side. I don't really know what to do with them, considering you can't even stack them up if you're playing on DraftKings. Which one of your 3 shortstops is your favorite out of all of the Mets?
Right. Probably the ones that aren't Baez, but yeah, like Lindor, Baez, and then VR, I guess.
Okay, yeah. I mean, Baez will just swing at anything. God, I still cannot believe that swing that he made 4 feet in front of the plate in the dirt, whatever. I really don't have a ton to say here. Peter Alonso in the cleanup spot against a lefty, absolutely, you can fire him up, but not a team I have a crazy amount of interest in here. Anything else really stick out to you from this game or from their side?
No, not really from the Mets side. I do have respect for Wood as a pitcher. The Mets are just kind of a middle of the road stack. They're not getting ownership, but there's a lot of teams not getting ownership on this slate, so that's not quite enough for me to want to get there. The Giants are really the priority for me.
All right, going to the Dodgers, minus 132 at San Diego, 7.5 total runs here in this one. Wow, yesterday. Did you see any of that game whatsoever? I'm doubting it.
Of the
Dodgers
no,
and
I was
Giants game?
No.
Yeah, and that's what I would expect. You're on the East Coast for sure. Here on the West Coast, it was just an absolute trap. I mean, the game started at 7:10. It's like, oh, I'll just watch a little bit before I go to bed. All of a sudden, it's 1:15. What in the world is happening? Really, really entertaining. But Max Scherzer, Yu Darvish, I think part of the luxury you have for both managers yesterday, they could use up their entire bullpens knowing they had 2 pretty strong contenders here. Max Scherzer, Yu Darvish on the mound here. Looking at the top 2 pitcher percentage, those are 2 of your top 3. Scherzer at the top, 24.7%. Coming in with 35% ownership, and then Yu Darvish 20%, about 20% ownership. I like both a lot on this slate. How about yourself?
Yeah, same here, especially Scherzer. I think that, the matchup is dangerous against the Padres, but pretty much every good pitcher has a tough matchup tonight. The guys that have bad matchups are guys like Michaelis, or the guys that are facing bad offenses, rather, are guys like Michaelis and Corbin. Your good pitchers typically have matchups that are at least a little bit risky. I think Scherzer is just the best pitcher on the slate at this point. 34.5% strikeout percentage, 3.33 xFIP. The only thing he's had issues with this year is 1.36 home runs per 9. It wouldn't be surprising to see the Padres tag him for a home run or 2, but overall, Scherzer is my number 1 guy. As far as Darvish goes, I'm a little more concerned about him just because the Dodgers lineup is really scary. They're expected to get Mookie Betts back tonight. But one other real concern I have with Darvish, he's been good this year overall. He has about a 30% strikeout percentage. He's allowed 1.44 home runs per 9. So kind of similar to Scherzer, strikes out a lot of guys, doesn't walk that many guys, good xFIP, but does give up home runs. The other thing, though, that scares me about Darvish is that He's for his entire career, with the exception of last season, he's graded out as below average at controlling the running game, preventing stolen bases. This year, he's back to being below average. The Dodgers have stolen the 5th most bases in baseball this year. So you run the risk of, whenever you take a pitcher against the Dodgers, you run the risk of, the Dodgers just hitting home runs, because that's what they do. But also when you have guys like Turner, Betts, Taylor, Bellinger, or, I should say potentially Betts, there's a lot of guys in this lineup where, even if, let's say, they get lucky and just, get a blue pit to shallow right field, they're going to be on second or third base by the time Darvish is throwing the next 2 or 3 pitches. And it's just going to make it even more likely that he gets quote unquote unlucky, but also gives up a few runs. So the upside's clearly there with Darvish, but I think it's a really concerning matchup for a couple of different reasons.
You could say that about some of the San Diego side as well. San Diego's 24 of 26 on steal attempts up against the Dodgers for the season. And you don't have Will Smith. He's guaranteed to not be catcher after he caught all 16 innings yesterday. I don't know how that feels, but that's got to be an improvement, knowing that you're going to get Austin Barnes in that lineup, unless Will Smith is superhuman. I guarantee you he is not going to be in that lineup tonight. Definitely was laboring towards the end of that game. Who wouldn't be if you caught 16 innings? Not good times, especially in the year 2021, where Pudge Rodriguez isn't hanging out there. We don't have a lot of these long inning games. So something that I'm just going to throw out there to just pay attention to. Austin Barnes in the lineup, definitely an upgrade for him. And you might see a couple guys get some rest here after such a long game. So just be on the lookout for that lineup. However it turns out, I'm still going to have exposure to both sides, but be on the lookout for that from the Dodger side. Of course, Mookie Betts, Trey Turner, Max Muncy, you get any of these dudes here from that side. How about from the San Diego side? Does anything stick out to you? Maybe a potential one-off, considering Tatis is 6.5K. You want to talk about the most ultimate contrarian of contrarian plays on this slate with upside. Any shots on some San Diego guys against Scherzer?
I don't think I get there. I'll get to the Dodgers for sure before I get to the Padres. It's just so tough to get there. And like you said, Tatis is extremely expensive. Machado is expensive. Grisham and Cronenworth and Pham are probably priced where they should be. But I just think the matchup looks better for the Dodgers than for the Padres. I don't think I really get to San Diego.
Absolutely agreed. All righty, moving ourselves along. We got 2 to go. First, though, we've also got all of our fantasy football draft kit stuff. It is available right now for purchase. Season long, best ball fantasy leagues, everything that you could possibly want. We have the same projections, tools, analysis we use for NFL DFS that goes into the package of the Draft Wingman, our best ball rankings, our stacking guide, our trade value charts, everything that right now is available for you. You also get a $35 credit from Underdog and FFPC leagues when you sign up now. It's 33% off using the promo code WR. Just use promo code WR at checkout and you get $10 for everything. It's $10 for everything we have to offer for the season long and best ball product. Use the link in the description of this video to activate the offer. We've got producer Jordan, the best producer in the game, of course. I would never say anything bad about you, Jordan Klein. You are so loved and respected. Can I even see him? He's so tiny. Oh, there he is. Oh, yeah, there. That wasn't very nice of you, but he's got everything pulled up on the screen. Check that out. Good times will be had by all. Check out the Draft Wingman. We've got videos from Josh Engelman. He's been doing a great job with those. Did another one for Yahoo today. Did one for Underdog on Monday. Such great sites and such a great opportunity to start putting in the time and the effort there, because the football season will be here. That next Thursday night is going to be lit. Or 2 Thursdays, I guess. So yeah, we've got 2 weeks till the start of NFL season. That's so crazy to say out loud, but check those out. We got 2 games to go to here. New York Yankees -109 at Oakland, 8.5 total runs here in this one. Jameson Taillon, James Caprillion, both underneath 8K. Kind of makes sense as some salary savers if you're trying to get different in some large field GPP spots. Does either one really kind of stick out to you on this slate?
Not really.
Okay.
I don't mind taking pitchers against the Yankees because they do strike out. It is a good park to pitch in. Caprillion is relatively inexpensive and not getting much ownership. So I guess from that standpoint, you could make the case if you have if you're stacking the Red Sox, it probably makes sense to go to somebody like Caprillion over somebody like Kikuchi, given the ownership. But outside of instances like that, I'm not too enamored with Caprillion here. Taillon, I like the matchup even less. The A's are just really tough to strike out. They have a lot of really good hitters in their lineup. He's been a lot better against right-handed bats than lefties, which works in his favor here. But the middle of this order with Olsen, Lowry, Moreland, I still think can do some damage to Taillon. So if I am going to one guy, I think I get to Caprillion before I get to Taillon.
Alrighty. Well, from the Yankee side, we don't have a lineup yet, but we got to assume that it's going to be the usual suspects, especially 1 through 5. You get Gary Sanchez, a great catcher option all the time. Brett Gardner expected to be back tonight. Not that that matters to me whatsoever. And Andrew Velasquez in the 9 hole. I don't know how. Dude's just kind of overachieving for sure, but it's going to be strange to send him back once all these other guys get back. Torres, I guess, Andujar, all these other dudes. But from the Yankee side, what sticks out to you there?
Not a whole lot other than some of the pricing. Anthony Rizzo at 3,400. He's just better than a $3,400 hitter. Joey Gallo is better than a $4,200 hitter. The park still sucks though. It's going to downplay power. Foul balls become outs as opposed to, being 10 rows deep. So it's still not a great spot, but using Rizzo and Gallo basically just as high upside plays at lower salaries than they should be at makes some sense.
So the Yankees have the 4.5 implied team total, 4.1 for Oakland, but I feel like I'm with you where I think I might have a little bit, and at least I'm making this assumption before you talk about it, but I think I have more interest in going to some of the Oakland Athletics on this slate. You talk about the upside, they don't really strike out a lot. You get Marte, 5.4K always makes a great contrarian one-off. What are you going to be doing with Oakland on this slate?
Yeah, they're projected to be really low owned, and they're a team that just has tons and tons of power. I still don't think they end up being one of my top stacks. I think I get to the Giants before them. I think I get to the Dodgers before them. But it is just a really high upside offense. I think Matt Olson and Mitch Moreland both look good. Lowry looks good. Unfortunately, again, on DraftKings, you can only roster one of Olson or Moreland. But either of those guys, and then Kana's good. Marte is a really high upside option as well. Probably going to get to more mini stacks from Oakland, I think, where it's just focusing on Olson, Lowry, or Moreland, Lowry. But they are projected to be very low owned for a team that has as much upside as they do.
Agreed. Anything else from this one?
Nope.
All right, we got one to go. Oh my God, did we just fly? I mean, we just flew. Kansas City, plus 146 at Seattle. 8 total runs here in this one. You've got Brad Keller on one side. You've got Yusei Kikuchi on the other here. Brad Keller, he is so bad, but I mean, 5.2K stretched out against Seattle in a good ballpark. I don't know. I mean, am I just absolutely crazy for liking both pitchers in this game?
For liking Brad Keller? Yeah.
Okay, liking is bad. liking is the wrong word. It's the same way I like to get. No, I'm not going to even go there. We're not going to even say that. I was going to do something about me eating chalk. Just wait for it. It's happening on Monday. I'm a sick person, but here we are. You probably missed that. I don't even want to talk about it.
No,
Kansas City.
I already heard.
Oh, you did?
I didn't hear how it came up. I just heard it was going to happen.
No, I'm just an idiot. That's really kind of the end of the conversation there. But Kansas City, Brad Keller. I'm considering using Brad Keller. There we go. Found it.
Yeah, basically the way I look at it is I think that any even close to average major league pitcher who's 5,200 is just naturally underpriced. So that's kind of how I view Keller here. I don't think he's going to be that necessary to get to because there is that really just kind of deep range of 7 to 8K pitchers that you can mix and match between. It's an okay matchup against Seattle. He's not a very good pitcher. Overall, 19.8% strikeout percentage this year, 4.49 xFIP. But he is underpriced. I think if you're paying down, I would get the Brad Keller before I get the Mitch. And
Yusei Kikuchi on the other side. This dude we know can ramp up the strikeouts here from time to time, so why not take some shots against him? So 25.6% K percentage on the season. Keeps the ball pretty low too, even though he gives up some really hard contact, 45.7% hard hit percentage. 7.4 degree average launch angle is decent enough though. But I mean, yeah, it's definitely getting hit, but this is kind of like a play both sides for me. What do you think about Yusei Kikuchi in this spot?
He's getting a lot of ownership, and I think he deserves it. I think he's a good pitcher. You mentioned the strikeout percentage. He has a 3.65 xFIP this year. And then one thing to keep in mind with him, too, is he has had an absolutely brutal schedule this year, at least recently. Over his last 10 starts, he's faced Toronto twice, Houston twice, the Yankees twice, Tampa Bay, Oakland, the Angels, and the White Sox. Every one of those teams has at least a 104 WRC plus against left-handed pitching this season. The average WRC plus, when you factor in the teams he faced twice, is 112.7. And then now he gets a Kansas City team with a 95 WRC plus against left-handed pitching this season. They've only struck out about 20% of the time. It's not a great strikeout matchup, but that's not as much of a concern when Kikuchi goes from being, like a 9K pitcher to 7,300 just in time to face Kansas City. So I think he deserves to be the most popular pitcher in that price range. It's just a spot where, you keep in mind what teams you're stacking him with, where you have Boston or more popular teams, go to one of the lower owned guys. Where you have the Dodgers, feel free to play Kikuchi. I do think, though, he is the top option out of that group.
I agree with you. But Kansas City, we still have Whit Merrifield, Nicky Lopez, who I just don't want to click on, but I suppose whatever. Include him in a 5-man. Sal Perez, 55% hard hit percentage on the season, continues to do crazy things from the catcher spot. I do like a lot of 2 and 3-mans, maybe to target against a very high-owned pitcher, but anything else do you stick out outside of like your usual suspects for KC?
No, I mean, Perez always one of the top catcher options.
Mhm.
Really, him and Merrifield, the only things close to above average hitters on this team. Dozier has some power at 2,700 if you needed a cheap one-off and wanted to negatively correlate with Kikuchi. But Perez, I think, clearly the top option.
All right. And then on the Seattle side here, we're looking at Brad Keller. I think Brad Keller is a guy you can click his name on once or twice. I do not like Brad Keller. I'm already self-conscious about that. JP Crawford, Mitch Haniger, Kyle Seager for sure, 4.1K. Pretty muted pricing here. Kind of a pretty easy team to kind of combine in, 4.5 implied runs. And looking at the top stacks percentage, Seattle, it's strange. Like they kind of are middle of the road and coming in a little bit under owned. Maybe this is a team I'm going to get to a little bit more than I was anticipating. How about yourself?
For Seattle, I think maybe I get to a little bit. I really like Haniger and I like Seager.
Okay.
They look good. Keller does give up power to both sides of the plate. Doesn't miss a lot of bats, particularly against right-handed hitters. Only about a 16.2% strikeout percentage over the last 3 years. This year he's at 16.4% with a 224 expected ISO. So I like Haniger. I really like Seager. If you mix in some Ty France, some Abraham Toro, I think that's fine as well. Seattle, their ownership's come down a little bit since this morning as well. So that makes them look a little bit better too.
Anything else from this game?
No.
All right, man. We just got in underneath it. Guys, thanks for kind of bearing with us a little bit of the technical difficulties, all the other things, but ended up being a great show. Adam, any final words for the people?
No, that's it. I guess it is a pretty wide open slate in terms of like teams that, in terms of top stack percentage, there's a lot of really, really similar teams. Boston kind of running away with it there, but slates like this, I tend to just sort of end up emphasizing like negatively correlating with the field against pitchers and stuff like that a little bit more because there's just a bunch of teams that otherwise are similar.
All right. Well, coming up right after us as we speak, I don't even know if we're going to do like the normal transition out of this software or what we're going to do, but we've got Greg and we've got Josh Engelman coming up right after us for MLB Live Before Lock, taking you guys up, giving you all the information you need as we're coming down to lock here. And then I believe there's the college football DFS strategy show as well coming up with Ben and Matt Kajewski. If you haven't heard these guys talk college football, if you haven't checked out the Betting You podcast, you need to be doing that as well. That's coming up at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. But otherwise, I'm Eric Lindquist. He's Adam Scher. Best of luck tonight. And
we all know football season is the greatest time of year, but drafting season's a very close second. So whether you're drinking and drafting with your boys for your annual home league or preparing for your next high-stakes draft, the top priority remains the same: winning, and more specifically, winning money. And what better way to do that than by drafting a beauty? That's why you've got to check out our brand new draft kit at Awesemo.com, created by experts who have profited over $7 million playing fantasy sports. These guys are going to help you crush your drafts this year with tools like the Draft Wingman that's powered by projections from the #1 ranked daily fantasy sports player in the world, Awesemo himself, and includes a one-of-a-kind recommendation engine that takes into account your prior picks to ensure a well-rounded team and optimal draft. Draft Wingman is also outfitted with best ball-specific recommendations, including our stack highlighting feature, which helps you complete your all-important best ball stack. If you're looking for more details, or maybe you're already down to join us for an incredible NFL season, click the following link and use the promo code WR, that's WR, to get the entire draft kit for only $9.95. We'll see you over there.
And we are live in an abrupt fashion. Welcome to MLB Live Before Lock. It is Thursday, August 26th. I am Josh Engelman.
I don't know if you can hear me, but I can't hear anything.
Greg Aaron Berg. Jordan, can you hear me? Okay, well, then it's Greg's fault. Greg will figure it out in a bit, but I'm going to continue letting you guys know that you are at MLB Live Before Lock. Getting a little bit later start thanks to the Deeper Dive crew, but the main event is here. Don't worry at all. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, notification bell, all that good stuff. Greg moves into his house and all of a sudden can't do shows anymore. That's what I'm seeing. He has no idea what I'm saying. I'm going to keep talking about him until he realizes it. What up, Greg? Exactly. I'll keep this going. This should be fun. We've got 9 games. We've got plenty of time 45 plus minutes going around. We're going to hit on our stacks, our pitchers, all that other good stuff. And you guys should just keep hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel. I'm checking out chat right now. Don't worry. We're going to give some dong calls. Kudos to Greg. I don't want him to be able to hear my happiness for him, but got the home run yesterday from Oscar Mercado. I got one as well, Reese Hoskins, and now he's just gonzo. So do I need to check these Slack messages? Is this something I should be paying attention to, or is this somebody else's problem? Jordan, I was hoping you would like nod to me or something like that, but let me hop over to this thread, see what's going on. Can't hear anything. I'm good. Greg can't hear. Solo live before lock with Josh. Business is about to pick up, everybody. So normally I would start this with top pitchers. I'm going to do that until Greg gets here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the pitching that I'm looking at right now based on my last run of my data along with our current ownership projections. And it starts at the top. I think Max Scherzer and Chris Sale are pretty clearly the top two options. They're certainly the best pay-up options, 10-4 for Scherzer, 10-2 for Sale. Both coming in Scherzer coming in pretty aggressively owned at 39%. I am a little bit lighter than that, but nothing too crazy. Similarly for Sale, he's only coming in at 24%. I'm a little bit higher there. I see Scherzer and Sale as pretty comparable, around 30%, guys. The ownership gaps for me, not really mattering all that much. I would just like to have 30-ish% of Scherzer or Sale. Greg, are you here?
I think so. I don't know if you could hear me. I could hear you now, though.
You sound like you are in a cave, but it'll work.
So I just got my house set up. I'm in a new office. I guess the audio maybe not ideal right now, but I could hear you. I had to unplug my microphone to be able to hear you, though.
Yeah, you're crystal clear. You had to unplug. What microphone do you have?
It's just a held up microphone. I didn't have my other microphone to set up yet.
I was going to say, maybe the headphones needed to be plugged into that mic. If you would have said Yeti or something, that could have been the issue. But either way, congrats on being in your house now. You can tell that there's like I assume very little going on like the walls and everything.
Oh yeah. It's the biggest feature right now is that there's a lot of dust everywhere, so I could barely breathe. That's like the really big thing that has going on right now.
Well, there we go. I was just touching on pitching a little bit, talking about Scherzer and Sale. I didn't have any real hot takes. I think they're both, either Scherzer properly owned, Sale maybe a little under owned, but I like them both a lot. I was also going to say that I really think that the Yusei Kikuchi ownership is proper at 7,300. I got a couple guys that I think I'm higher on than the field. I got a couple guys that I think I might be a little lower on than the field, but I'd like to get your thoughts on pitching. If you have any hot takes for Scherzer or Sale or Kikuchi for that matter, feel free, but just talk to me about pitching in general.
I played them. I'm overweight to the field on Sale. I'm overweight to the field on Scherzer. I just look at some of these cheaper guys. I don't feel comfortable with really any of them. There's a couple of guys that I got to, like the 5 to 10% range, but the majority of my pitcher exposure, it's Sale, it's Scherzer. I got to a decent amount of Kikuchi. I'm still a little bit light to the field. The field had Kikuchi right around 30% in our last ownership update, and I'll refresh to see if that's still the case. 29% right now. So I'm a little light on him, but not like anything egregious. I have him around 25%. So Scherzer and Sale, that's really the bulk of my lineups. I couldn't really find another place I really wanted to get to.
Yep, we're on the same page there. I think Darvish is properly owned. I think Pat Corbin is pretty properly owned. The guy that I'm different on three guys, and I'd like to get your thoughts. That could be our jumping off point. We've got Alex Wood projected for 18% ownership. I got him at about half that. We've got Alicia Hernandez at 14% ownership. I've got him at half that. We've got Miles Michaelis at 2% ownership. I've got him more in like the 15% range. Hit me with your first thought on any one of those three guys, whichever one stood out most to you.
So guess how much exposure I have to Miles Michaelis right now?
Well, it's either going to be 16% like I have or 0.
It's 15%. So I'm pretty good with that number. It's more than anything, we haven't seen him pitch all that much this year. He's been injured for most of the season. His last time out, though, he made it through 5 innings. He didn't really have any significant pitch count issues. His last minor league start, he was also fully stretched out. It's a positive matchup against the Pirates. So if I look at any of these cheaper pitching options, Michaelis stands out mostly because he's kind of okay, and the matchup is good. So many of these other pitchers that we're looking at for cheap, Carlos Carrasco, brutal matchup against the Giants. Zach Gallen, tough matchup in Philadelphia. I don't really feel great about any of these guys. Michaelis, I at least feel pretty confident is safe because his matchup against the Pirates.
Yeah, Pirates lineup is awful. There's a lot of strikeouts here. Michaelis not much of a strikeout pitcher, but he is good. And I think can go mildly deep in this game, especially if he's being efficient, working on some ground balls. So I like to get to Michaelis, particularly at no ownership. Do you have any extra thoughts on Alex Wood and or Alicia Hernandez? Oh, also, William Fields, shout out for the super chat. Said congrats to you, Greg. I assume based on the house and not your Miles Michaelis ownership.
Yeah.
He's looking for a 7K or lower pitcher on DK with a high ceiling. So that's Sam Hentges, Mitch Keller, Jordan Lyles, John Gant, Brad Keller. I think Keller is the answer, but there's not a lot of talent in the sub 7K range.
I have 7% exposure to Brad Keller. That makes him my most rostered pitcher, sub 7K. That's not a massive vote of confidence, but if I had to go with one guy to really sit salary with, I have Brad Keller in 7% of my lineups right now. The field has Keller at 5% right now, so fairly neutral, but the only guy that's cheap that I'm getting to in those parameters.
All right, back to Alex Wood and Alicia Hernandez. Thank you again to William Fields for that super chat.
I have 0% Hernandez. That's a pretty high ownership for a guy that I more likely than not, I don't think pitches all that well in this situation. It's obviously a positive matchup for him, but still, we haven't seen him work very deep into games as of late. He is somewhat fresh coming back to the big leagues. So his last 2 starts, he only pitched 5 1/3, 4 2/3 innings. Those were against the Cubs and the Reds. I don't have that much confidence that he's going to work deep into the game. I would feel different if he was cheaper, but 7,600 on DK, that's kind of a no-go. On FanDuel, I don't think he's going to make it through 6 innings to be able to be eligible for a quality start. So I don't have any exposure to him at all.
This makes me happy. I don't have much else to add. We're sort of in lockstep here. Is there anything else you want to touch on then for pitching?
I didn't get to Patrick Corbin either, and he's picking up a whole bunch of ownership. I haven't rostered Corbin. I don't even know at all over the last couple of months now at this point. It's been a rough season for Patrick Corbin. He's been a guy he's never been a high velocity pitcher, so I can't really point to his low velocity and say that that's massively concerning, 92.2 miles per hour, but the overall results for him, 5.82 ERA, 5.69 expected ERA. He's not generating strikeouts this year, career low 18.6% K rate. Those are all really bad numbers for a guy who's 8,200 on DK, which is fairly expensive for him relative to what we've seen from him recently. The matchup is good against the Marlins, but I just don't want to play bad pitchers when they're highly owned. So I have a little bit of leverage stacks going against him, but another pitcher with 20% ownership, I have him in only a handful of lineups.
He's a guy where I think the ownership is about where it should be. So I don't really have much to say. Showed up in 16% of my Sims, 21% ownership. The combination of the park and the matchup against the Marlins makes me understand it. It doesn't make me like it a lot, but I know why it's happening, and I can't really disagree with it all that much. If I got less on Corbin, I wouldn't care at all. Like, it wouldn't bother me. It wouldn't be something that I would try to force in or make happen. But for now, I understand the Corbin ownership.
Yeah, there's just other places I would rather go. Let's see. Guys in this price range I got to more of than him. Well, I mean, it's kind of everybody because I hardly have any exposure to him. But I'd rather go cheaper and get to Michaelis. I'd rather go to Zach Gallen, even though I don't love the matchup for him. Brad Keller, mentioned him before. I have more exposure to him just because I have 7% Brad Keller. So there's a handful of pitchers I'm getting to before Patrick Corbin here and that are cheaper that I just prefer.
Anthony Davis with the super chat. Big one, too. Would Kansas City be worth a primary stack? By the way, I really like the StreamYard pop this stuff up on the screen. That looks really good. I'm a big fan. Anyway, would Kansas City be worth a primary stack? Yusei Kikuchi is 20% owned on FanDuel. I don't think so. That is not a stack for me. I have them dead last on FanDuel, 12th in leverage. You do get the benefit of being on the opposite side of Kikuchi. I just don't feel like the Royals are in a position to be the top scoring stack on this slate all that frequently. I have them at 2% likelihood.
Yeah, and if you look at our top stacks tool on the site, we have a 2.7% chance for them to be the top scoring team of the day. That's the third lowest on the slate. The only teams picking up a lower odds being top scoring team are the Pittsburgh Pirates and San Diego Padres. So you can make a case that there's some leverage just based on how much ownership there is going to Kikuchi. But it's not like we have this team going massively under-owned. They're still picking up a little bit of ownership with low odds being a top stack. So If you're playing a lot of Kikuchi, you want to get some leverage, that's fine. But if you're just playing one single entry lineup, that wouldn't be my primary choice.
There we go. We're done on pitching. Normally, this would be a schedule spot, but I want to give the plug to Jock Market, the presenting sponsor of this show right now. Did you happen to see an email today from Jock Market, Greg?
I've been busy today, so I'll say maybe.
Well, obviously you should play at Jock Market, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a spiel quickly. Use the promo code Awesemo when signing up. Get a $50 bonus on your first deposit. You don't want to pass up any chances to grab some free money if you can. For Jock Market, you're buying and selling shares of players, which I don't even know if I can use those words right now in this Twitter climate, but we shall see. Whether it's NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, these are the types of contests you could use, but they've added a new feature. Are you ready for this?
Tell me, break the news.
You are now able to short players, something that I've been very interested in from the beginning. So prior to this, let's say you thought, what's going to be a good example? Name a hitter today that plays. If you thought Whit Merrifield was going to be the highest scoring player on the slate, it was just the first name I saw, and you bought those shares, you would get paid out if Whit Merrifield, you would get $25 a share if Whit Merrifield got paid out as the number one scorer for the slate. Meanwhile, now let's say that JD Martinez is at the top of the Jock Market list for today, and you think he's going to tumble. You can short JD Martinez. You can profit based on his failure, which as an American feels great. That's definitely something that we all love to do. They have finally added shorting to Jock Market. I think that's going to really change the mechanism of buying and selling, really opens up the transaction. So I'm excited to see that. Make sure you're using that promo code Awesemo when signing up and get $50 bonus on your first deposit, because now you can buy players like normal or you can short them, and that's kind of fun.
Yeah, and I'm just looking through the Jock Market and seeing who are some of the players that are picking up a whole bunch of bids right now, or maybe are projected really well. It might be high on one thing that's going to come up. When we're talking about some of these offenses. We've got, it seemed like the Texas Rangers, they're projected pretty highly in Jock Market, and for value purposes, that makes sense. I think for FanDuel and for DraftKings, there's some cheap batters for sure on the Rangers, but I don't know that these guys should be projected as the highest projected players on the slate on Jock Market.
I'm really excited to redo all of my stuff so that I can short some of these guys. I think it's going to be pretty fun. Juan Soto, $5.41 right now if you want to buy those shares, but now you can short them. It's a very different, it changes everything now.
The fifth projected player on Jock Market today is Ian Kiner-Falefa.
I would be pretty comfortable to short that.
Yeah, that's what I meant by some of the Rangers bats.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk a little bit about bats then. Who is your favorite stack today? Or if you have more than one, give me more than one.
Yeah, so my favorite stack today, same as my favorite stack from yesterday, one that didn't go all that well, the San Francisco Giants against Carlos Carrasco. It's kind of a pretty similar situation, although it's a Giants team that isn't picking up all that much ownership, and then they're also going up against a pitcher that, yesterday with Taijuan Walker, he pitched well. The Mets went to their bullpen, I thought, a little bit too early. But with Carlos Carrasco, he's dealt with a whole bunch of injuries. He's also had cancer over the last few years, and you look at him coming back now. His velocity is the lowest that it's been basically in his entire career. His results so far this year, 8.82 ERA, 4.69 expected ERA, 5.68 FIP. In 5 starts, he's only been able to pitch a total of 16 in the third inning. So I don't know what to make of Carrasco right now, except my gut feeling is just he might be over the hill just based on all the injuries and health situations he's dealt with. He's 34 years old now. He hasn't pitched all that much as of late. So I like this spot for the Giants again.
Well, I bet on the Mets outright, so not really hoping that you succeed in this one. I don't really mind getting to the Giants because there's so much variability on Carrasco. No problems there. My top stack is a very similar one for me yesterday. I like going to Cleveland again. It didn't look great out of the gate. It certainly got a lot better by the time that game ended. So if you had some Cleveland yesterday, I'm sure you were happy about it. But taking on Jordan Lyles, really bad. I have them as my number 2 overall stack, but I think they're more properly owned. And to me, the Red Sox are the top stack, but pretty clearly over-owned. deal with that however you want. I have Cleveland firmly second, and then a huge gap between 5 more teams, third through sixth. 3, 4, 5, 6. Third through seventh. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. Anyway, I like Cleveland a lot today. I don't mind the ownership. A lot of it is being driven just by Jose Ramirez, and he warrants that ownership, but up and down the lineup, happy to get there. Bradley Zimmer, the only guy that I think is going probably a little over-owned, and you could offset that by going to more Miles Straw, who's going to me under-owned, or get to someone like Daniel Johnson, who is the flat 2K. But for right now, against this Rangers team, against a crappy Jordan Lyles, I have a lot of interest going to Cleveland. I haven't looked at the top stack tool, so I want to see where they at, because they were
you're not going to feel great about it.
Whoo, that's a lot of negative leverage. Second biggest negative leverage stack on the slate, behind the Boston Red Sox. Yeah, not the most comfortable feeling in the world. So wow, we also have Philly over-owned. Philly is my number 2 stack in terms of combination of leverage and top stack odds. They are my number 4 overall, but very, very high in my leverage metric. Do you like the Phillies today?
So the Phillies, I kind of think Zach Gallen, there's been this weird thing, and it's something that I haven't talked with you about on any shows, but Adam and I have done probably the last, 6 Zach Gallen starts or something like that, and we've done shows together. He appears to be perpetually underrated in just any sort of Vegas line that goes up. We've seen basically anytime Gallen starts, teams have opposing run totals against him, like over under 5 runs, 5.5, 4.5. And I think Zach Gallen's just a solid pitcher. So Zach Gallen's numbers this year, he does have a 4.59 ERA. That's not particularly great, but he's a 3.86 expected ERA. And the other thing also to consider with Gallen, he's faced a ridiculously difficult strength of schedule this year. So I look at the numbers, 4.59 ERA and 3.86 ERA, 3.86 expected ERA. Then I look at some of his recent starts. It's in Colorado, against the Padres, in San Francisco against the Giants, against the Giants again, and then at home, against the Dodgers, another start against the Giants, and then another start in San Diego. He's only been facing elite offenses, and this isn't necessarily a cakewalk against the Phillies, but he's a pitcher that's been somewhat successful this year. He's been really good in previous years. He just is constantly facing high-end offenses. So I think that Zach Gallen overall is getting underrated for that reason. I'm a little higher on him than most people. So I don't really like this spot for Philly.
So it's interesting. I use the Vegas lines to set my expected run totals. It dictates a lot that's going on for my projections, and that's driving Philly pretty high because of the way that this line looks. I also use all of that information and spit out what ends up being my own line for this game. I bet the Diamondbacks today, and I have the Phillies implied run total 0.8 of a run lower than the Vegas line. So I agree with everything you're saying. I'm stuck in a weird place where I'm betting on Arizona, but I'm advocating for the Phillies from a DFS perspective. And there are pieces that I really do like here. Herrera in the leadoff spot at 3.5% ownership, to me, is under-owned given this particular matchup, given this park. I'm happy to get to more Bryce Harper or Real Muto or Didi Gregorius, Brad Miller. I think there are enough lefty bats in here that I do like them as a DFS stack. But if I'm going to be perfectly honest, I'm a little nervous about that Vegas line, and I do have money on the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I do as well. I think the line, I bet it. And by the way, the line has also moved a lot as the day went on, because I think I bet the opening line was Arizona plus 155. And now that line is, fairly close to a pick 'em. So there's been a decent amount of line movement in favor of Arizona, and that's a line that doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, I just think Zach Gallen's a pitcher who also, I have to look at our player props tool to see where it's at now. He's somebody that is also rated out pretty well as an over for strikeouts bets in our player props model a lot recently. For
Tough
today,
today.
Yeah, once again, not a massive amount of value, but still, we have the over 5.5 strikeouts hitting 57% of the time, so 11% expected ROI. He's been almost every single one of his starts over the last 6 weeks one of the top strikeout prop bets in each of his starts. It's very consistently been a lot of starts. So it's like Zach Gallen, 4.5 Ks, over under 5.5. And it's just a guy who the books do not be very high on.
You got a better line than I did. I got it at plus 140, which is still a lot better than where it is right now. But you got on it a little bit earlier than I did. Did you bet it last night?
I think like early this morning / late last night, depending what you consider to be when I'm up at like dumb hours for whatever reason. Like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Is that considered night or morning?
I don't know, man. That's a tricky one. I guess last night I would consider that. I would say that anything that happens before I wake up is last night.
Fair.
Because I generally wake up pretty early. So like I think that I can be a pretty good arbiter of when night ends.
Yeah, well, I was moving today, so I was pretty excited to get that done.
Yeah, absolutely. What other stacks are you looking at? Or if you have anybody that you want to rally against, by all means.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily rallying against. Like the Red Sox are one of my most stacked teams today, but that still has me way underweight to the field on them. It's weird how that happens sometimes. Like Boston is currently my third most stacked offense, and that has me massively underweight to the field on them because they're picking up 22% ownership on DraftKings. On FanDuel, they are picking up 25.2% ownership. So I have this team that's making up a decent chunk of my lineups that I don't want to do well because of what the field is rostering them at. So that's always kind of those weird situations where, yes, I'm getting to Boston, but I don't want them to do well.
They're my number one team by a pretty considerable margin. Second worst leverage team that I have behind the Cardinals. You got to have parts of these Red Sox because John Gant isn't spectacular. And this run total is huge. I will say that I think the Red Sox run total is quite a bit overinflated. And I will also put out that I have bet on the Minnesota Twins for today. So I just want that to be out there. But anyway you shake it, like the Red Sox are one of the top 2 or 3 teams you can get to. Just be aware of your ownership and be aware of the things that you're doing once you roster the Red Sox. For example, if you're forcing yourself to get to some Red Sox, maybe not forcing, that's not the right word, but if you find yourself with a 5-man stack of the Red Sox, I think Miles Mikolas makes for a really nice pitcher in that lineup at no ownership whatsoever and a relatively cheap price tag for a team that is, generally speaking, pretty expensive.
Yeah, and then one other thing I'll add about Boston is this is something I brought up a lot during the year, is when there is a massively owned team that also rates out as having really good top stack odds, I'll often look to the bottom of the order and look for guys that are maybe less popular. That doesn't exist in this lineup. We have Christian Arroyo is batting 7th, 13% ownership. Jared Duran is hitting 8th, 11% ownership. So it's not like there's some guy we could plug in at the end of the line. It's like, oh, this guy's 3%, this guy's 4%. I could massively reduce the ownership share of my team. That's not an option in this lineup because everybody's owned.
What are your thoughts on the Cardinals, who I have as my most overowned team? We have them slightly overowned, but also still a pretty high stack ranking. I find them to be not all that awesome because I don't think Mitch Keller is bad. I think he's like average.
I think Mitch Keller is very bad. So that's it's kind of similar to the Red Sox where I'm getting exposure to the Cardinals, but it's still less than the field. But Mitch Keller's numbers this year, he has a 6.35 ERA, a 5.69 expected ERA. He's been a weird pitcher because he was a top prospect in baseball. I guess we could still consider one of the top younger arms in baseball in terms of just raw stuff. 94.6 average fastball velocity this year. He went down to the minors. He produced really excellent results in the minor leagues, but he's always produced good results in the minor leagues, and they just don't translate to anything at the major league level. So overall in the big leagues, he's now made 32 career starts. He's a 6.07 ERA. He has a much lower 4.4 FIP, but given the amount of hard contact he allows, it's not a shock that he has a high home run to fly ball rate. He has a high batting average on balls in play. So Mitch Keller, to me, is a pitcher who maybe in the future could potentially become something. Where I'm really interested in Mitch Keller is when he finally gets traded from the Pirates, because this is what we see with every good young pitching prospect that burns out with the Pirates. They go somewhere else, another team is able to recreate them and turn them into a good pitcher. I just don't know that's going to happen in Pittsburgh. We've seen this time and time again where they have young pitchers, they have good stuff, they just don't produce good results. And Mitch Keller, who walks have been a big issue for him, hard contact has been an issue for him. So I'm getting to Cardinals less than the field as a stack, but as one-offs, I'm mixing in a lot of these guys.
So I see the hard hit percentages and stuff, but 384 BABIP, that feels unsustainable. 68% left on base, that feels a little low. Like, I feel like a lot of the things are going mildly against him. 492 Sierra isn't the best. 491 xFIP, not the best. I don't think it's been as bad as it seems on the surface. Like Jason Kelly said, Keller has an almost 2 whip. I don't think that we should be looking at that. for DFS purposes at all. If that's one of your roto categories, that's a different story, but that's going to change exactly 0 things for me from a DFS perspective. He's volatile, that's for sure. I'm giving him a little bit more respect in this situation and trying to stay away from the Cardinals. I just think they're pulling too much ownership. I don't want a 16% owned Tommy Edmond. I don't really want a 15% owned Dylan Carlson, not on this type of slate.
The only one other thing I'll add about the BABIP, in AAA this year, even when he was pitching fairly well, he had a 342 BABIP. No minor league numbers from 2020. 2019 in AAA, he had a 324 BABIP. 2018 in AAA, he had a 366 BABIP. I think there's just a chance Mitch Keller gives up a lot of hard contact. It's been something we've seen has been an issue for him before. So once again, a minor difference of opinion, but ultimately I'm still underweight to the Cardinals, but I'm just probably stacking them a little more than you are, and I'm getting to more of them as one-offs.
Yeah, alrighty. The BABIP is really concerning to me. Like, you might be right. He might just be a higher BABIP guy at 382 for his career from 2019 through 2021. Okay. Any other stacks you want to touch on? I think the A's are going a bit underowned. It's not like I like them a ton today or anything like that. They are my 9th overall stack, but only Matt Olson is pulling any ownership above 1.4%. There's enough power in this lineup that I'd like to get a little bit more of Oakland, even in this ballpark. Do you have any other teams that you're heavy on that it doesn't seem like the field is really getting to?
Yeah, actually, same game, but the other side, the New York Yankees, another team. The Yankees, the Blue Jays, these are teams I kind of put in that same sort of category. Really good offenses. If they're not going to be picking up that much ownership, I want to get to them. The Yankees are picking up 6% ownership as a team. I think they make for a pretty good pivot off of the Boston Red Sox. The park is obviously an issue. I think James Kaprielian is a decent starting pitcher, but we look at some of these individual Yankees here. Aaron Judge, single-digit ownership. Gary Sanchez, very low ownership. Giancarlo Stanton, 2% ownership, and at a cheap price tag. You know, for some of these guys also with the Yankees, whether it's Joey Gallo, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, if they're hitting the ball hard, it doesn't really matter what ballpark that these guys are in. So consider the ownership is so low. I always think there's upside in the Yankees. So I'm overweight to them. They are my second most stacked offense.
Ooh, that is a big number. That's a big number. So I have them 6th overall, 5th in leverage. I see it. I don't have much of a problem with it. The park sucks. It's bad for power. It's bad for runs. Lucky for the Yankees, they got a lot of guys who don't really care what park they're in when it comes to power. And I can name a lot of them before I got to a list where it started to matter at all. So I like the idea of getting to some Yankees. Yeah, that was more than I was totally expecting, but they are one of that group of 5 teams that I have that are all basically ranked the same. And they're only behind the Phillies in terms of leverage. Like LeMahieu should be more owned. Aaron Judge should be more owned at 5,100. That's crazy. I don't totally understand how Giancarlo Stanton, it could be 2% owned at 4,200, but apparently that's a thing. I would love to see Kaprielian pulling a little bit more ownership. That would be great, but I like your Yankee stack, man. That's a good one.
Yeah, and it's been a really consistent thing with me this year. If the Yankees are low owned, I generally am on them. If the Yankees are really high owned, I'm generally not on them. And then it's been the same thing with the Toronto Blue Jays too. When they're low owned, I've made it a priority to get to them. So I don't think there's teams that I've stacked and faded more often this year than the Blue Jays and the Yankees.
Any other stacks that you want to touch on?
Yeah, one more, another high-end offense that I'm overweight to, the Dodgers. Yu Darvish, there's a couple of things here. Number one, he's coming off the injured list, so that's always a little bit of a concern in terms of what is he going to look like when he comes back. But it's also easy to forget that he was not pitching well the last time we saw him out on the field. So numbers for him in July, he had a 7.36 ERA. In August, he had a 6.52 ERA. So overall, post All-Star break, a 6.15 ERA for Yu Darvish. And it's not like you look at the underlying stats, think like, oh, this is just a guy who's been unlucky. He has a 5.41 FIP in the second half of the season. Now, obviously, he went on the injured list, so he was dealing with some sort of injury. Is that the sole reason that his performance was bad? I don't know, but I think that there's a lot of variance. There's a lot of risk here with Darvish as an individual pitcher, and people don't want to roster the Dodgers just because, hey, look, it's Yu Darvish on the mound. But I don't know what we're getting from Darvish. It's, like I said, a long time off, and he wasn't pitching well the last time we saw him. He's 35 years old. He's had a pretty up and down career over the last few years. There's been seasons where he's looked really good over the course of the year. He was really good in the first half of the season. And there's been some other years recently where he's just kind of struggled. Go back to 2018, for instance. He got hurt that year. He finished with a 4.95 ERA, a 4.51 expected ERA. I think there's a lot of outcomes possibly here with Darvish, and the Dodgers have an elite offense. Yesterday's game also, that could play a role. Like, what kind of bullpen pitchers are we going to see in this game? If a team goes up by a few runs, are we going to see position players in the game at some point? So I like the upside of the Dodgers.
I have them graded out basically completely neutral, but I think that is also a bit of a benefit because that doesn't factor in that Darvish is 20% owned, and that would kick them up another notch. So I do have a little bit of interest in getting to the Dodgers, and obviously it's another loaded lineup. Like, there are worse things than rostering one of the best offenses in baseball, no matter what.
I'm really curious to see what their lineup is, because that game yesterday, which by the way couldn't have gotten luckier yesterday, because when I went to bed last night, I was. Like, when I first stopped watching the games, I was getting my ass kicked and just kind of stopped paying attention to the baseball games. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm kind of doing okay now. Why is that? It's like, oh, the Dodgers are all of a sudden, they're in the 16th inning and they started to put runs on the board. But I also think that could have a carryover effect for today. Let's see, how many bullpen pitchers the Padres end up using yesterday? They ended up using.
You're going to get to that faster than I will. I bet on the Padres last night, so the outcome of that game really pissed me off.
Yeah, the Padres used 9 pitchers yesterday, and they used basically all of their high leverage relievers. So did the Dodgers in that game. But how shorthanded is the Padres bullpen going to be? Is it a thing also? What if Darvish doesn't look right and he struggles a little bit, and they're just like, hey, you got to eat it today. We had to burn the bullpen yesterday. And I think this is a game after a 16-inning game. Don't be surprised if we see a position player pitching late in this game.
There we go. Guys, hit that like button. I don't have the YouTube thing up, so I don't know how many likes we have, but whatever it is, we need a lot more. And so just keep hitting that thumbs up. We need all the likes that we can get on this bad boy. What else do I got to hit on? Oh, coming up after this, 45 minutes from now, 7:30 p.m., college football strategy show. Ben Raza, Matt Gajewski, talking a little bit pigskin, coming back this Saturday. I think there's a 5-game slate. I think that's what Ben told me yesterday. So you guys want to be watching this. Matt, super, super sharp with regards to college football. Ben, super, super sharp with regards to college football. And I know they both like to get into like the weeds when it comes to college football. This is not a top 25 type show. These guys know way too much about legitimate garbage teams. Ben will bet anything that he can find. So anytime you can get like the 8th and 9th best teams in the WAC or something playing, he's going to be the guy that you want to go to. So make sure you're watching this show. Also, if you're looking for free content, MLB ownership is free today. Whether Nightbot drops that link or you go straight to awesemo.com. So I gave you credit when you weren't allowed to hear me. Allowed when you weren't able to hear me earlier today on your home run call yesterday. Would you like to take a mild victory lap for it?
No, because I just number one got really lucky with it. I already took the victory lap on Twitter, but it was mostly just to kind of make fun of you about it a little bit. But
I did appreciate
Oscar Mercado,
my face in it.
Oscar Mercado, he was my home run pick yesterday. He homered in his first at bat, so I got to celebrate that a little early. Not only that, though, but you picked Reese Hoskins. He homered. And the top bet in our player props home run tool was Jared Walsh. He homered. So all across the board, we got the picks, right? Earlier in the slate, people were hitting me up for home run picks. I had Paul Goldschmidt who had 2 homers. So are we riding hot with our home run picks? Is this a hot streak?
I think we are. It went really well. Reese Hoskins, good. Oscar Mercado, good. Paul Goldschmidt, good. Walsh, good. So let's get these things in now at 6:51 so we don't leave the people waiting. Who is your home run pick for today?
So this is going to be a little bit different from my one from yesterday, because I'm picking somebody who, number one, I'm overweight to the field on, but also is somebody who, once again, I think has a actual really legitimate chance to homer. So I picked Mercado yesterday, not actually expecting him to hit a home run. I just thought he was a really strong GPP play relative to his price and ownership. However, today I feel the same, and I think this guy has a really good chance to hit a home run, and that's Giancarlo Stanton. We talked about him just before as a play who, a cheap price on Stanton, and he's picking up no ownership. Obviously, he's in Oakland, and that's a pretty favorable pitcher's park, so that's maybe not ideal. But Stanton at 2% ownership at 4,200 is totally ridiculous to me. So somebody who I think is always somewhat likely to homer, and I like the price tag and everything on him.
I have nothing to say on this one. He's very clearly not the 121 ranked guy for today. That would be preposterous. Giancarlo Stanton, number 8 in my home run model. 3 Yankees in the top 8, which is really, really insane given everything that's going on there. My pick, similar boat, same game, different team. Give me Matt Olson. 3% owned. He is 3rd in my model. I just have to go to him today. I think he should be owned more. I think Oakland should be owned more. And he is at the top of the heap. Franmil Reyes, for anybody that is curious, number 1 in the model. Jose Ramirez, number 2. Wasn't going to those guys because they're pulling the ownership. But then I have this pack of Tatis, Judge, Stanton, and Salvador Perez, oddly enough, that are all single-digit ownership that I would recommend. But Matt Olson is the one that we're putting on the board.
I dig it.
I love it. We're going to get it again. It's going to be great. And I'll be happy for you if Stanton homers here. We can celebrate together on Twitter. This is not one I want to get smushed for.
Yeah, I mean, Stanton, like you said before, it's just really curious that he's not picking up any kind of ownership at the price point he's at, because there's not very many players that are more likely to homer than him. But let's also run back the home run props pick on our home run top props tool. This is also somebody who's not the most likely player to homer individually, but for his odds, Michael Chavez is plus 700 to homer today. So that rates out as the best bet in our MLB player props tool for home runs.
49th overall in the model today.
For 7-1, that's not bad.
No, 49 of 152. So, top half. That's for sure. All right, let's rip through this position by position. Since we're fitting it all into a quick 45-minute show, give me your preferred cash game catcher and your preferred GPP one-off.
All right, for cash games, I think this is pretty easily Christian Vazquez. At 3,100, he's going to be the most owned catcher by a fairly wide margin. So it's pretty hard to not make him the cash guy. For GPP, my answer is Will Smith right now, but I don't know if he's in the lineup. I think there's kind of a chance he won't be, just based on what happened yesterday and how long that game went. So still waiting on the Dodgers lineup. If Will Smith is in, he's going to be the option for me. If it's not him, then it is Kurt Casale at 2,300, just based on his price and low ownership for tournaments.
I'm with you on Vasquez for sure. Real Muto is my 3rd ranked guy, and I do have him slightly under-owned, but he is pulling 11% ownership. So I would go to Jose Trevino or Austin Hedges, both looking very similar and pulling minimal ownership at no price tag whatsoever. First base, I think we'll be in agreement on this one too.
All right, over at first base, Paul Goldschmidt is pretty easily the cash game choice, in my opinion. For GPPs, Anthony Rizzo's picking up a little bit of ownership, but he's still the answer for me. I'm pretty high on the Yankees today, and just the price point is right.
Totally agree with Goldschmidt. I do like Anthony Rizzo. He's number 2 for me, but this one's easy. It's my home run pick. Give me Matt Olson, 3% owned. I'm willing to take my chances on a day like today with no ownership. If I'm going to ever buy a home run, Matt Olson at no ownership sounds like a decent way to do it. Second base.
All right. Second base, the cash game option. It could be either Kike Hernandez or Tommy Edman. I think it depends how much salary you have available there. Ideally, the answer is Hernandez. If you can't get up to the 4,700, save money with Edman and no real issues there. Neither of them have eligibility at another position. For GPPs, there's going to be a little bit of a trend here for me. DJ LeMahieu, very cheap price point for him. And once again, not picking up ownership for the Yankees.
I agree that Kike is the guy you're trying to start with. Edman works as well. Christian Arroyo also pulling some ownership. He's 4th for me. If you need to save the money, he's 2,800. I think that is at least viable, depending on what the rest of your lineup ends up having to look like. Andy Ibanez is my 2nd highest ranked second baseman and showing up as under-owned. But I really like the LeMahieu shout. Better combination of like price and upside. Third base. Well, this one's super simple.
Rafael Devers for cash games. I assume that's where you're leading me to there. Is that correct?
Jose Ramirez works as well. They're basically the same thing today. Separated by $100. You can go to either one of those guys.
Yeah, it's let's see, who do I prefer at this point?
the only options are one of those two guys. That I can tell you.
Yeah, it's I lean towards Devers, but once again, it could be either of them. For GPPs for me, Wilmer Flores, cheap price point. Once again, correlates with the stacks I'm making today. I like the Giants against Carlos Carrasco, my number one stack team. Wilmer Flores also a guy who traditionally is thought of as somebody who hits left-handed pitching really well, but wasn't really somebody who hit righties as well. He's been a good hitter against right-handed pitching also over the last couple of seasons. So somebody else, I think, a little bit too cheap, and I like his matchup against Carrasco.
Ramirez and Devers showed up in 50% of my sims, the other 50% going to the rest of the crop of third basemen. I don't have much else to say for Ramirez or Devers. Wilmer Flores is the guy ranking the highest for me that has any sort of positive leverage, but Chris Bryant, Max Muncy also there. I don't have anything bad to say about those guys. Shortstops for cash games, Ahmed Rosario, relative to the price point, he's also fairly popular. I think that he is the guy to go to. For GPPs. I don't really I'm pretty spread out at shortstop. I don't know that I have a favorite. I have a lot of guys that I've rostered like 6-7% of. If it has to be one, I mean, Brandon Crawford, the ownership's kind of already there, so it's not like I'm crazy overweight to him. If he's in the lineup, Corey Seager, that's the guy that I'm most overweight to. Only project for 1% ownership right now, so I guess he's my choice. But to me, the shortstop position is pretty flat. Ahmed Rosario is the cash game option, pulling the ownership at the top of my list as well. If I'm looking for a GPP option, I think it's pretty clear. He is my number 4 overall, 3% ownership going to $4,900 Francisco Lindor.
He's been so terrible this year.
Yeah. Can't help it. Got to go that way. All right, outfielders, as many as you want to name, go for it.
All right. Let's start with the cash options. There's going to be a trend here. You could go with all Red Sox outfield and cash games. I would have no issue with that. JD Martinez, Alex Verdugo, Kyle Schwarber. The prices are too cheap for them. They have massive ownership. I think all Red Sox outfield for cash games is fine. If you need to sub out one of the expensive guys to go cheap, Adolis Garcia would also make sense. But it's for cash games, I think you probably want to load up on Boston today.
Schwarber, Martinez, Verdugo, all pulling a ton of ownership. Pretty easy to get to them too, especially with Verdugo at 3,500. Garcia at 3,100 also fits pretty easily. The GPP options are much more fun. Miles Straw, Bryce Harper, Odubel Herrera, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Starling Marte. These are some of the guys that are showing up in like my top 15 outfielders that are pulling significantly less than the ownership that I believe.
Yeah, if I'm going to 3 GPP outfielders, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, everybody knows by now I like the Yankees as a stack today because of their ownership. And then also somebody else who correlates with my ownerships, with my stack, so he ends up in fairly overweight to me, is Lamont Wade Jr. leading off for San Francisco today. Only 3,600 on DK, also fairly cheap on FanDuel, and once again, not a ton of ownership.
Love it. All right, cash pitchers, GPP guys that stand out to you.
Cash, just play Scherzer and Sale. I think you could go down to Kikuchi just because he's cheaper and he's picking up a bunch of ownership. But my priority would be to pay up for Scherzer and Sale. Go down to Kikuchi if you really need the savings. But I think there's enough cheap hitting options that are viable today that there's not a real need to force Kikuchi into cash lineups. But there's nobody I think you should be considering outside of those 3, Sale, Scherzer, and Kikuchi for cash.
I think you are absolutely right. Sale, Scherzer, Kikuchi, the only 3 options I'm going to from a cash perspective. Miles Michaelis, James Caprillion, the 2 guys that I would be looking to that aren't pulling a ton of ownership that I'd be willing to get to in GPPs to try to be at least a little bit different. I'm running a 25 lineup crunch of just basically like my raw projections. Gives me 100% Kikuchi, 88% Sale, 8% Scherzer. So that's kind of interesting to me. Prioritizing the cheaper Kikuchi. Even without setting up stacks, I get 4 Red Sox bats. I get Jose Ramirez. I get Ahmed Rosario. Lineup is loaded, and then just Andy Ibanez sneaks in at 2,200. But I like it. It's a good lineup. As far as
I basically played the chalk at pitcher today and differentiated with my offenses. So, I mean, I'm primarily on Scherzer, Sale, and Scherzer. If I'd have thrown another GPP pitcher, somebody you mentioned also we talked about at the top, Miles Michaelis only project for 2% ownership right now, and that's a number both you and I had him around 15%. So he is the individual pitcher that I'm most overweight to.
If anybody wants it, my highest projected lineup that has Scherzer and Sale, Christian Vasquez, Anthony Rizzo, Andy Ibanez, Jose Ramirez, Nick Ahmed, Schwarber, Verdugo, Miles Straw. What we got going on there? 3 minutes to go until lock. 2 minutes to go. How did the move go today?
So it's been a long process because I don't know how much we've talked about this off camera, but this is, so I bought this house in October now. And I thought I was moving in December. And there have been all kinds of issues, from plumbing to the guy who was the contractor just stopped showing up one day. And his reason why was that his girlfriend had a baby. Now here's the twist. He's married with 3 kids. So that's a whole nother situation. But yeah, so it has taken forever to get this done. But yeah, I'm here now. I'm going to be staying here for the first time. I've also got my brothers are going to be living here. So that's going to be cool and really fun. So I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I'm happy that I have it still feels like I'm just in a stranger's house right now, but it's definitely cool.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations to you. I'm glad that ultimately you're in the home, and your former contractor hasn't. So I assume he's not the one that put the baby in the girlfriend.
Who's to say? Who's to say? Okay. I don't know. There could have been multiple people involved. This guy's I've characterized him as a sketchy character.
It seems like he's not making the best life decisions, but who am I to judge? Sometimes
no, and not only that, but so like I owed him a very significant amount of money, and he did a lot of the work and then just stopped showing up, stopped returning calls. Or if he did call, he'd be like, "Hey, I'll be over there in 2 hours," and then he wouldn't show up, and then just never return calls. And then a couple of days, he'd be like, "Yeah, I'm showing up," and then just wouldn't show up again. He had like a few days left of work to do, and he would have made it was like $12,000, and he just never showed up again. So I don't even know. So
you have not paid him anything, correct?
No, I paid him because we paid him in 3 installments, and it was an upfront. Then there was one in the middle, and there was one at the end when he finished everything. And he did not have that much work that we had him contracted to do, and he just stopped showing up.
So I had this issue happen prior to this. We had a screened-in porch at a previous house, and we had done some work with this guy before. Everything was fine. We actually sold my previous car to him. He bought it for like one of his workers, so I trusted him. He got really, really flaky. He did a piss poor job, left a lot of it unfinished. We couldn't reach him for weeks and weeks. But he eventually came and said he was going to finish off what he was doing like in the next couple of days. I was like, you know what? Okay, that's fine. I had no reason not to believe him. I paid him. Obviously did not show back up. I took pictures of everything. I took him to small claims court, and I lost, which was not.
How did you lose?
Because I paid him. So the moral of this story was, do not pay him if he has not finished that work. I asked the judge afterwards. I was like, look, just so I know this for future reference, like, what is the real problem here with like what I did? Like, why didn't I win? Like, I took 60 pictures of different things that were all just like not even remotely close to right. And he was just like, you cut the check. I was like, good to know. Good to know.
Yep. So the other thing too is there's other people. We just had to hire other people to come and finish and do the work at some point. Cause it was a thing too, where we waited for months for him to just show up, and he just never did. So that was the big hold up. The other thing too is due to COVID, I guess everybody just started doing renovations to their house at the same time. So there were shortages on everything. Like it took 2 months to get kitchen cabinets delivered. Hardwood floor took forever to get in. So with everybody doing renovations at the same time, there just wasn't materials available.
Yeah, I got a friend that's a builder, and it's been an interesting process. But that's it. We are done. We are locked. It is 7:06. Thank you guys very much for joining us. Please stick around. You don't have to stay on this stream, but stick around. 7:30, college football strategy coming up with Ben and Matt. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, notification bell, all that good stuff. Greg, anything else before we get out of here?
No, that'll do it. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. I assume that people are still able to watch on YouTube, even though YouTube being a little wonky today, but YouTube, get it together.
There it is, everybody. Thank you. Good luck. We'll back again tomorrow, doing it all once again. See you.